Let me give you a quick overview of today's agenda. So first of all, because not everybody might have a clear picture as of now what EWM is, and especially what is EWM embedded in S/4HANA, we will start initially giving you a quick overview of that. Then we will talk about deployment options with you could say the classic EWM and the new option of EWM embedded. We'll talk about migration. So what different options do you have in migration and what are the implications? Okay, then let's start with the first topic, which is the overview. A quick few facts about extended warehouse management for everybody who doesn't have this background information. EWM is SAP Strategic Warehouse Management Solution. What does this mean? This means this is the product where all the innovation you will see is concentrated. It's also in the leader quadrant of Gartner's famous warehouse management solutions overview. So that means it's the strong contestant in the space of warehouse management systems. And as of now, we see that we have over 1,200 installations worldwide across roughly 3,000 plus sites. And there have been implementations done.
Has joined the meeting.
There have been implementations done in 24 industry in 40 different countries. So that means you can see it's a real global solution. It's a strong and mature solution. Has been around since 2005 already. So let's get into more details on that. Basically, why is it a leader in Gartner's study? EWM offers you robust modeling of simple to complex warehouse processes. So that means whatever size warehouse you're dealing with, might be a simple warehouse somewhere to just act as a hub. It might be a production warehouse. It might be a big distribution center. EWM is fit to cover all your needs here with a heavily configurable set of features. And that should give you enough power to run your whole set of warehouses, all your different types of warehouses under one platform with one solution. Okay, next one, please. Other than that, as it's integrated into your ECC platform in your ERP platform, it also gives you real time insight because all steps you execute in your warehouse management are immediately replicated back to either S/4HANA or ERP ECC. And also EWM brings with the whole technology platform that SAP offers. So that means it's also very well fit for connecting your, I would say, latest warehousing technology, whether this will be, let's say, pick by voice to enable voice picking operations, or even a step further, pick by vision, which is slowly coming up right now in the warehousing space. It also has features to connect automation technology directly to EWM without the need for any middleware. And that's a big topic if you're thinking about automation warehouses. You don't need external warehouse control systems anymore. You can directly control your automation hardware with EWM. It's a big cost saver. So this is very exciting. Next slide, please. And also you can see here, due to this integrated approach that SAP has, all of its products, all of its modules are integrated with standard interfaces. We have two major interfaces that EWM uses to enable real-time communication. We already talked about the ERP platform, so your S/4HANA system or your ECC system, but also EWM lives on the supply chain platform. And what does this mean? This means it's also integrated with SAP's transportation management solution and event management. So you can also run your whole supply chain and integrate services from, let's say, your warehouse to the road to the end customer. Yeah? So everything that happens in your supply chain is integrated. All communication happens in real time, and you're always up to date on what's happening in your supply chain. Okay, next slide, please. So to wrap this quick introduction up, I just want to give you some insight on what results you can see if you implement EWM. This is one example from one of our customers we have done. So this was a customer in the retail space, and after implementing EWM, we could see they had a 10 times faster inventory turnover time, was almost around 30% faster loading time. This came about because of the integration of mobile devices directly into the warehouse management system. So all the steps the warehouse operators have executed were immediately reflected back, which means also your warehouse stock is very accurate, it's very up to date. As it's a real-time communication, you know when your loading is done. So we increased the efficiency in generating the shipping documents by immediately triggering this printing process. Once the last pallet was loaded, you didn't have to waste any time anymore. Also, cross-docking is one of the features that EWM supports, which is also integrated with the ERP system. So this enabled our customer to minimize handling and improve their efficiency there. And last, we had some quality management processes which were also integrated into their quality management framework with online communication. And as EWM is a very robust system, it can also easily deal with peaks in operations. So customer could just work in the normal workload efficiently, but also during peak hours, there was no problems and everything was working smoothly. Okay, so that was a very quick first introduction. We will go into much more detail now on EWM Embedded and the different options. And for that, I would like to hand over to my colleague Phil to give you more details on that.
Hey, everybody. So we're going to start talking about EWM Embedded in S4HANA Release 1610. So EWM Embedded in S4HANA 1610 was introduced to replace LEWM. Yeah, so that is SAP's classical ECC warehouse management solution. And so I'm not going to go over this entire Venn diagram, but I want to emphasize is that EWM Embedded in S4HANA with Release 1610 has most of the functionality of decentralized EWM. Yeah, so there's few functionalities that are excluded from EWM Embedded in S4HANA, but we're going to touch on those functionalities later and how SAP is working on adding some of them back in future releases. And so one of the biggest advantages of EWM Embedded in S4HANA is that it brings a simplified solution to SAP's WMS landscape. It doesn't just replace SAP LEWM, it brings the mature functionality of SAP Extended Warehouse Management into SAP's strategic ERP system, which is S4HANA. And so S4HANA takes EWM Embedded in S4HANA to the next level by introducing the underlying philosophy of S4HANA into EWM. And so the listed improvements are a few examples. We see reduced redundancies as a result of a shared S4HANA core. The EWM Embedded in S4HANA user interface experience builds on user-driven user experience native to SAP S4HANA. And we have a faster release cycle, which means you benefit from new features. And these releases are more stable because they only provide incremental changes. And so first we're going to talk about reduced redundancies. So as mentioned before, the main difference is that EWM can read directly from the S4HANA core. As a result, you see a reduction in master data, configuration, and transactional redundancies that exist with decentralized EWM. And so first we're going to talk about master data. Master data can be read directly from S4HANA Core, so it no longer has to be duplicated between two systems. Yeah, so for example, with a customer and a vendor, which you currently have in ECC, which is then sift over to EWM as a business partner. In S4HANA, EWM reads the business partner directly from the S4HANA Core. As a result, you have a lower total cost of ownership because interface data reduction and a leaner database means that there's less maintenance. You also no longer have to duplicate config in both systems. Whereas previously, you would have to configure, for example, a handling unit type in both ECC and EWM. EWM embedded in S4HANA reads this config directly from the S4HANA Core. In addition, again, with the S4HANA Core, it's kind of a repeating theme, you no longer have intermediary documents such as the outbound goods receipt, inbound delivery notification, and the posting change request. So whereas in the previous decentralized EWM landscape, an ECC outbound delivery would be replicated to EWM as an outbound delivery request, a carbon copy of sorts, and then turned into an EWM outbound delivery order. In EWM embedded in S4HANA, the S4HANA outbound delivery is directly replicated to an EWM outbound delivery order. And so similar to master data, you have less interfaces, a lower cost of ownership, and also, in addition, you get the possibility for future features, which we'll talk about later. But so this is a very important concept in the difference between decentralized EWM and EWM embedded in S4HANA. So next, we're also going to talk again with reference to the S4HANA Core, the elimination of the expected goods receipt and the ability to directly access predecessor documents, such as purchase orders and manufacturing orders directly in EWM embedded in S4HANA. So whereas before, the ECC purchase order would get replicated into EWM as an expected goods receipt with a batch job, and that's important, with a batch job, before getting turned into an inbound delivery. EWM embedded in S4HANA reads S4HANA purchase orders directly. So whereas before, you could potentially have outdated data in your expected goods receipt. For example, if a purchase order or manufacturing order changes between the batch job being run and when you're trying to create the inbound delivery, with S4HANA and EWM embedded in S4HANA, this purchase order is read directly. Yeah, so you're getting real-time data. And so finally, the last redundancy that we are going to talk about, or redundancy reduction, is with quality inspection. So with quality inspection, SAP decided to use the more mature and powerful QM module when compared to the quality inspection engine that is used with decentralized EWM. With EWM embedded in S4HANA, the S4HANA inspection lot directly triggers the EWM follow-on action. However, and again, we're going to talk about this a bit later, not all features of SAP QM are available with EWM embedded in S4HANA, though SAP is currently planning on bringing some of these features back into the warehousing solution. And so next we're going to talk about an improved user face that comes with SAP EWM embedded in S4HANA. So with EWM embedded in S4HANA, SAP introduces brand new Fiori 2.0 to warehouse management. Fiori 2.0 is SAP's new user experience strategy. It is built on UI5, and its reactive screens allow the user to move between devices while maintaining functionality and quality of user experience. And so this is enabled by heavily simplifying screens that only display information that you need right now. And this also results in less user training. And so right here, just from the beginning, you can see the launch pad. And so this launch pad only contains information that the user needs to know. Yeah? So for example, here we have a role, the warehouse clerk, and it contains the apps that are required for this warehouse clerk to perform their functions. And now for some of you that are familiar with SAP's current screens with decentralized EWM and ECC as well, I want you to compare and contrast this create inbound delivery screen with the previous create inbound delivery screen. What you see here is only relevant information such as the product, order quantity, the planned delivery date, and here you're even able to create a choose before the inbound delivery is even replicated to EWM. Next, you can see the outbound process screen. And so again, here you only have relevant information. You can even see the percent of the delivery that has been picked. And again, it's a much more simplified user experience, which is also makes it easier to train the user. And so finally, another thing that I think is really cool about SAP EWM is that Fiori also provides a framework to develop custom screens for the more efficient execution of processes. So here we have a picking screen that we, Westernacher, developed. And you can see right here we have our warehouse order. We have our HU number. We have the progress of the different tasks within this warehouse order, the weights and dims information of this pallet, and also the item that we are currently picking. What is even more interesting about this is that this app is being run on an iPad, and Fiori is able to access the native device functions such as a camera to scan a barcode, such as in this case. Yeah, so this is functionality that is very new with Fiori and very new to warehousing. And some advantages of it that you will see is that, previously, mobile devices with EWM relied on ITS Mobile. And so before you had to have separate screen designs for each screen size. Whereas here, you develop one screen, which here you use on an iPad. But then with open web technology, you're also able to use this same screen on an iPhone. And whereas with ITS Mobile, you would have to develop a new screen for new screen sizes. The reactive technology behind these Fiori apps automatically resizes these screens and allows you to use the same app on an iPad, an iPhone, all while maintaining the same functionality. And so finally, we're going to talk about the faster release cycle that SAP Embedded on S/4HANA delivers. And so EWM Embedded on S/4HANA 1610 was the first release including EWM Embedded in S/4HANA. Everything before that was LEWM. And so previously, WM was used as an intermediate solution, and now it's kind of getting phased out because by 2025, by the end of 2025, we will have an end of maintenance of LEWM. And so that's why it's important right now to learn more and more about EWM and EWM Embedded in S/4HANA. And so in this section, we'd like to share some of the future features which may be released shortly that we are excited about in release 1709. As a disclaimer, while this information has been published by SAP in the warehousing roadmap, this is subject to change, and we do not recommend basing any of your current decision-making on the content of product roadmaps. And so the first functionality that we're going to talk about that we're really excited about, because picking is ultimately the core of the outbound process, is increased picking efficiency. So combined picking was already introduced in EWM 9.4 to combine picks from one source bin, but it is now planned in the next release to add support for bulk bins and pick by voice. Really what this is doing is creating a more complete picking solution for SAP EWM embedded on S/4HANA. We also have a Fiori pick car app proposed to be used for batch picking, which involves a high number of orders with a low number of picks. And this allows you to pick multiple orders at the same time within a single batch run to reduce travel time. And such functionality is perfect for the current trend towards e-commerce, which has such orders, and is suited for any other business that, again, has a high number of orders with a low number of picks. Next, we're going to go over the improved shipping capabilities that we expect to see in Release 1709. So EWM improves on existing EWM cartonization functionality by using transportation management load optimizer based on advanced mathematical models and performs calculations to maximize the utilization of space on a pallet. And what's really cool about this algorithm is that previously with cartonization, you were not able to, with standard, consolidate product quantities that do not fill a complete layer in a pallet. With this algorithm, this is now possible, and this is a huge optimization of a shipping process because you are now able to pack your pallets more efficiently, ship more efficiently, and ultimately lower your costs. And with that kind of in mind, you also have a tighter integration with transportation management through integration with SAP's supply chain execution platform. So next we're going to talk about improved quality management. And so as I previously mentioned, some quality management functionalities were excluded from EWM embedded in S/4HANA 6.10. But part of SAP's goal is to align embedded EWM in S/4HANA and decentralized EWM. And so with this upcoming release, we expect to see partial quantity decision, acceptance sampling and production, and QI controlled goods receipt, which was excluded from the previous release. We also expect to see functionality that improves your warehouse utilization or helps you improve your warehouse utilization. This includes easier maintenance and more powerful engineered labor standards, which allows you to perform better analysis of how work is being executed in your warehouse. And we also expect to see improved tracking and monitoring. Really, the coolest component of this is the introduction of shifts into the processor business partner master data. And what this allows you to do is not evaluate each processor individually, but a group of processors together in one shift, again, allowing you to further improve your workforce utilization. And so finally, we're going to talk about the ability to change deliveries after distribution. This is something that is very cool, and it's only possible because of the S/4HANA core and the relationship between EWM embedded in S/4HANA and S/4HANA. So because you no longer have an outbound delivery request and you are copying directly from an outbound delivery to an outbound delivery order, you're now able to allow customers to change or cancel their orders and reflect this change directly in EWM. You're able to reallocate product to different orders and change and create new outbound deliveries to adjust to your supply chain. And you're also able to change transportation information. And so what this results in is a much more flexible supply chain. And right here, I think, is probably one of the clearest examples of a benefit that we see because of the relationship between EWM embedded in S/4HANA and the S/4HANA core. And so, again, SAP is always continuing to innovate and simplify their solution. And so, based on this roadmap and based on challenges that we see in implementation and how SAP reacts to them, we expect SAP to improve functionality in the following areas. And so with regards to industry-specific functionality, SAP EWM is not an industry solution and sometimes misses industry-specific functionality. SAP adds industry-specific functionality to complete the feature set, and this could span industries such as automotive, retail, pharma, and utilities. Sorry, automotive. And so part of this retail piece is an increased throughput of volume through warehouses. And so this necessitates warehouse automation. And in this case, SAP is constantly improving to enable you to directly integrate with modern automation technology, as Marco previously mentioned, without the need for middleware, giving you a complete warehouse execution system. And so next, we're also expecting to see additional Fiori apps that are planned to replace legacy and classical user interfaces with modern simplified apps. So instead of just creating of inbound deliveries and processing of outbound deliveries, things like work centers like packing and such, we expect to see apps that are much more easier to use and a lot more attractive. And so finally, with IoT integration leveraging SAP Leonardo, we expect EWM to follow SAP's strategic direction towards Industry 4.0 and build a platform that allows the active collection and analysis of data. And this last piece is very cool because it really takes what you are able to do within a warehouse, the way you're able to analyze your warehouse to the next level. And so next, we're going to talk about deployment options. Ultimately, you have two options with deployment: embedded or decentralized. And so right here, we're just going to quickly go over the classical SAP warehouse management solution landscape with ECC. You have EWM, decentralized, able to handle the most complex requirements, the highest warehouse complexity. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have LEWM, centralized, able to handle simple requirements and lower warehouse complexity. Next, you have, the current SAP WMS landscape with S/4HANA. And here you have S/4HANA WM centralized. And again, most simple requirements, lowest warehouse complexity. And on the other side of the spectrum, SAP EWM decentralized. But the new kind of part of this is S/4HANA EWM Embedded. And so one thing I really want to stress is that SAP is aiming for feature parity between EWM Embedded in S/4HANA and decentralized EWM. So while there are currently differences between EWM Embedded in S/4HANA and decentralized EWM, these differences are temporary, and comparing different deployment options is an entirely separate discussion and is independent of pros and cons in how you choose whether you deploy EWM decentralized in S/4HANA, or sorry, EWM decentralized or EWM embedded in S/4HANA. And really, this is because, with this future landscape, you have to make a choice based on system complexity that you have, warehousing complexity that you have. And ultimately, what I want to emphasize here is, again, we showed this diagram before, a lot of the functionality of centralized EWM is already in EWM embedded in S/4HANA, and we expect to see some of that functionality missing in EWM embedded in S/4HANA to be added in future releases. And so ultimately, when you are deciding which deployment option to go with, we need to look at warehouse operations and IT landscape when considering a deployment approach. And so some of the things that we look at with warehouse operations when we look to implement a new warehouse management solution to bring our warehouse into the future is the physical operations in the warehouse, the possible system impact on these operations, and what is required of the system to operate the warehouse. And so with physical operations, we have to consider how many warehouses we have, or what is the capacity or throughput of these warehouses. Because as the number of warehouses increases, as the throughput of these warehouses increases, it begins to favor a decentralized approach. Also, this is more relevant for logistics service providers, but decentralized enables you to have a multi-customer environment, whereas embedded only allows you to work with storage locations that you have within the S/4HANA system that EWM is embedded in. So next, we're going to talk about the different system considerations that you have to take. You have to look at what kind of flexibility you need to change or upgrade one system without impacting the other. And you have to look at the impact of warehouse downtime or ERP downtime on the corresponding landscape. So whereas with embedded EWM, if your ERP system goes down, your warehousing system goes down, or if your warehousing system goes down, your EWM system goes down. With decentralized, if one system goes down, the other can continue to operate. And this also becomes extremely important when you talk about fluctuating throughput within a warehouse. Because on one hand, when you go live, you can implement EWM and there's a low volume, and then the holidays can hit, your throughput increases, and all of a sudden it can bring down not only your warehouse management solution, but also your S/4HANA system. So that's where you really have to think about your system landscape when you're picking a deployment option. And so lastly, you need to consider how you will operate your warehouse. So in this case, we're going to focus on warehouse automation. Faster response times are typically required for mini-load and case conveyor systems because of how fast they move. Whereas on the other hand, you could have something like an ASRS system or a pallet system that could still work with embedded. These faster response times are only possible with this EWM instance close to the warehouse. And so it's not, just a system constraint, but it's literally a physical limitation in the location of the system. And this has a great impact on the response time which is required for certain kinds of warehouse automation. And so next we're going to talk about the IT system landscape, balancing system optimization with total cost of investment and total cost of ownership. And so here we're going to talk about both central hardware resources and the number of SAP instances that you maintain. And so with, decentralized, you have an increased load on existing IT infrastructure when implementing a new module of SAP. But you also can potentially have, with embedded, an increased load on an existing system. So again, we previously talked about system downtime, system capacity, and warehouse throughput. And all of this has to be considered when you're looking at your hardware resources to support your SAP EWM implementation. And next, also looking at the number of SAP system instances that you're willing to support. Because ultimately, decentralized requires additional IT infrastructure to support the communication between the systems and to maintain the different systems themselves. And so looking at these deployment options, the next thing that we're going to look at is migration. We title it Journey into the Cloud or Not. Because cloud is this buzzword, but sometimes cloud doesn't always fit the functionality that you are looking for. So ultimately, with EWM embedded in S/4HANA, SAP is driving process simplification and improvement with a migration. And it's important especially to look at EWM migration because LEWM will no longer be supported after 2025. And so given this, you ultimately will have to decide between migration options. You have the managed cloud, you have hybrid cloud, and you have on-premise. And within that, you also have to consider the EWM deployment options that we discussed previously. And so we're going to delve into each one a little bit. And so we have the managed cloud, which is managed by an external company such as SAP themselves. And it's ideal for low complexity warehouses. And it also lowers costs. It's subscription-based, but it's also vendor-governed. And it only allows you to use the web UI. Furthermore, you have minimal development flexibility, but then you also have quarterly upgrades. And so this is ideal for simple warehouses. Next, you have a hybrid cloud, and this allows for medium to high complexity. While it does have a higher cost, it is still subscription-based, and it has a shared governance between the vendor and yourself. And because of this, it allows you to use both Web UI and SAP GUI. Also, because it is a hybrid cloud, you have greater development flexibility, but then on the flip side, you only have annual upgrades. And so finally, we have the classical implementation on-premise. It allows for higher complexity, but it also comes with a higher cost. It has a traditional licensing model that you're more familiar with right now, and it allows you to locally govern your system. So whereas cloud is totally vendor governed, on the other side, on-premise is locally controlled by you. It allows you to use both Web UI and SAP GUI, and it provides the greatest development flexibility. What's really awesome about this, though, is now with EWM embedded on S4HANA and the upgrade approach that SAP is taking with S4HANA, you now have annual upgrades and you get the incremental improvements that we previously talked about. And so with that in mind, with your migration approach, with the different deployment options, you now have to look at the two options that SAP offers for EWM embedded in S4HANA. So SAP offers simple warehouse management and advanced warehouse management. So within simple warehouse management, you are able to manage simple warehouse processes, and it gives you everything you need to run a simple warehouse. But then with advanced warehouse management, it gives you functionality that allows you to run the most efficient warehouse. Really, the best way I could summarize the difference is it's the difference between having just stock transparency and control versus optimized warehouse operations. And this ultimately impacts how you deploy SAP EWM, migrate to SAP EWM, and choose between simple and advanced EWM embedded in S4HANA if you choose to deploy that way. And so finally, we're going to present to you a deployment migration matrix. And so with this matrix, we look at the different options for deployment, their advantages and disadvantages across the managed cloud, the hybrid cloud, and on-premise migration. And so with the managed cloud, you're able to implement a simple EWM process and simple EWM in general with EWM embedded in S4HANA, and it really provides you that simplified solution that we talked about before. However, we don't necessarily recommend a managed cloud with decentralized EWM. Next, you have the hybrid cloud, and this works very well with simple and advanced EWM. It allows you to have more involved and optimized processes, but it still gives you that simple solution that you get with having EWM embedded in S4HANA. With decentralized EWM in the hybrid cloud, you can get full EWM with more involved processes, and you get a very flexible solution. And then finally, with on-premise, it works with both simple and advanced EWM embedded in S4HANA. It allows for more complex processes, especially with the use of advanced EWM. But you still get, again, that simplified solution. And finally, with decentralized EWM on-premise, full EWM supports the most complex processes and also provides you the most flexible solution. So all of these aspects need to be considered when you decide your deployment approach and your migration approach.
With that, we're through with our content. I can see there's the content delivery. So we will stay on for another 10-15 minutes to answer your questions. But we're also happy to help you. We put our contact information here. So don't hesitate to contact any of us